Can you see me? Yes. You sure? Yeah. Can you see me? Yeah. I don't think you see me right now. I think you're seeing someone else from your past, maybe? Maybe someone who might have stood on a stage like this. Or maybe you're remembering somebody who looks like me. Super tall, incredibly handsome, but not me. I'm here to challenge you to consider that seeing is almost always an illusion of seeing. We almost never see except in those rare moments of first encounters. Our first love, first kiss, first loss. Otherwise, we only remember or imagine everything that we think we see. I know. I'm a visual culture researcher, which means I spend sleepless nights thinking about how people see things, how we see photographs, images, videos, especially of people who don't look like us, who don't live where we live, and who are not us. But let me start with a personal story that I'm not very proud of, but it was what started me thinking about this whole business of seeing. I was driving my daughter, Hannah, to her elementary school. She was first grade at the time. We were in the car line waiting for our turn when Hannah gets awfully animated and goes, "Hey, look, that's Dr. Grace, our principal." I looked and I wasn't sure which one was Hannah referring to. So she goes, "She is the tall one right there." All the parents looked to me to be the same height in front of the elementary school. I said, "I'm sorry, sweetheart, which one?" Hannah goes, "It is the lady in the blue dress." For the life of me, I couldn't see anyone in just a blue dress. But by that time, we made it to the front of the line. The door opens. Hannah stretches out her hand and goes, "There she is. That's Dr. Grace." At that moment, I realized that the principal was the African-American lady who was indeed wearing blue and stood taller than most right there in front of Sunrise Elementary. Hannah skips off, running to her class, excited to start her day. I, on the other hand, drive off with this overwhelming sense of guilt and shame that the only visual identifier that I was willing to accept for the principal was the color of her skin. And that was the only visual difference that was completely invisible to my much wiser 6-year-old daughter. It wasn't only a matter of implicit bias, even though God knows there was plenty of that, but it was more like a selective blindness that allowed my eyes to see certain things while leaving me completely blind to other details that were right there in front of my eyes. That sobering realization was the exact moment that I started wondering, do two people who come from two different cultural backgrounds see the exact same image in two opposing ways? But I wanted to understand, so how do we actually see? How does the eye work? So I checked out the biology of the eye. Turns out that the human visual system starts in the eye when light hits the retina, and special cells called photoreceptors turn the light into electric signals and send them through the optic nerve to an area called V1. But making sense of what we see is much more complicated. It is only when the visual data reaches the infratemporal cortex, which is responsible for object recognition, and only then that neural data is deciphered into meanings and we can tell the meaning of what we're looking at. That's how we can tell bears from chairs, faces from light bulbs, and so forth. If you ever see somebody's face and go, "Gee, that looks like a light bulb," get your IT cortex checked. The question that I had was, if our mind tells our eyes the meaning of what we see, does seeing then become an active interpretation of our world, all filtered through our education, our memories, the schools we went to, the movies we watched, the places we lived at. In my research, I found images after images that were seen differently by different people. Remember this? Yes. So it turns out that if you saw this dress as blue, that means you spend too much time outdoors. And if you saw it as gold, that means you're cooped inside your house and you do need to get out and smell the roses. True. Here's a classic for you. Who sees the young wife? Who sees the mother-in-law? That's what they're called, not me. Is this a duck or a rabbit? So the duck is this way, the rabbit is facing this way. The image does not change. What changes is your perception. Optical illusions, these two orange circles are exactly the same size. People like to think that seeing and perceiving are two different things. My work shows that there is nothing like seeing at all. There is no seeing at all. It is all perception, and perception all the way. What drives our perception is how we assume the world to be. The human mind, in its attempt to understand the world, tries to avoid ambiguity. And in doing so, it creates a shorthand for categorizing the world visually and conceptually. In Gestalt theory of perception, this is what is called the law of closure, where what we see is based not only on classifying what we see partially, but also on predicting what should be seen, even though that might not be in front of our eyes whatsoever. If you're seeing a triangle there, it's because your mind is telling you there should be one. But there is no square there. And there's no cube there either. But it's not all squares and triangles. There's politics in seeing. Systems of visual classification become technologies of power. Who we classify as a friend becomes visible and grievable, as Judith Butler would say, and who is not a friend may not be visible, and if seen, may not be seen as fully human, certainly not an individual with a name, parents, dreams, toothaches. Early in my work on visual difference, I discovered these French colonial postcards that were circulated in the late 19th century and early 20th century. And they look like this. This is not pornography, supposedly. This is supposedly an ethnographic representation of Muslim women in Algeria around that time. The striking thing about these photographs is that that's not how Muslim women are supposed to look like. Muslim women don't sit around in their homes or outside, topless, waiting for a European photographer to come and take nude pictures of them. I promise you. The stereotypical standard image that we have about Muslim women, even to this date, is something like this. So how was it that these postcards were not seen by Europeans as fake news, as unfunny, unrealistic joke that is the opposite of reality? Could it be that the colonial project wanted to subjugate and humiliate the colonized physically, politically, sexually, and visually? What is visible becomes invisible, and what is in the mind becomes what is seen, even when it completely contradicts what is in front of our eyes. Ever wonder why Muslims look like this? Or what do we imagine Native Americans to look like? Is this why a high schooler with a hoodie and Skittles in his pockets in Sanford, Florida, was perceived to be a threat and was okay to shoot to kill? Now, if seeing is an illusion of seeing, in what ways then, in the age of artificial intelligence, are we training computers to see? Here's a quick oversimplification. The eye of AI scans images and looks for pixel contrasts to determine the contours of objects. And then it searches a giant database of labeled images to match them with objects with similar contours. When the similarities are the same, then AI will make an automatic determination whether this is the image of a dog or a mop based on what is called machine bias. Computer scientists working on computer vision say that they want to train computers to see exactly the same way that humans do. Really? Do we want to train computers to see in the same flawed ways that we as humans have always used to make sense of what we see? Do we want to take our optical illusions, our selective perception, our visual biases, our deep fake, photoshopped and filtered images and teach that to the computer? Only a few weeks ago, a MIT graduate who was looking for a job, wanted to improve her LinkedIn profile. So she used an AI image generator and gave it this prompt. Give the girl from the original photo a professional LinkedIn profile photo. So the AI generated this image. Now, the original photograph of the student is this. Yes, my friends, her name is Rona Wang. Computer vision and video analytics are already put to problematic use with dangerous real-world implications in the form of AI surveillance. AI surveillance can see and analyze billions of images in real time and can make real-life determinations about any one of us. If you live in London, Dubai, China, you already know that you are on camera everywhere you go. Not only does AI know who you are and where you are, it also uses facial recognition analytics to determine your sentiments. Are you sad? Are you angry? Are you guilty? A company based in the UK called WeSee says that they developed an AI surveillance technology that can determine people's states of mind through their facial expressions, their gestures, and their movements. Similar technologies are used in an EU border control system called Border Control that screens the refugees and immigrants in a way that it analyzes their facial expressions to look for their psychological state and whether they could be lying or not. Another system, this time made by IBM, detects if a refugee has a chubbier face in the sense that they might have had an extra sandwich the day before or heavier dinner, and assigns them a terrorism credit score to track everywhere they go because they don't look as emaciated and as starved as any other good old refugee should look like. That's not enough. A company based in Israel called Faception says that they developed a technology that will determine not your sentiment, but your true personality. Personality. It's not a dating app. It is a security system that is sold to armies, the governments, and security organizations. Here's a sampler for you of their personalities. And that Jafar-looking terrorist guy, it looks like a true Arab with the goatee and the whole thing. As a matter of fact, he kind of looked the spitting image of my cousin Ghali. But Ghali's not a terrorist. He's Palestinian, not a terrorist. I'm here to argue that our civilization is at a watershed moment and that we are facing a fundamental challenge. Do we train computers to see in the same way that we as humans have always used to make sense of what we see? Or do we train computers in better and unbiased ways where a child will always be seen as a child regardless of their race, hoodie or no hoodie? If AI can recognize these images as those of cats, fluffy, cuddly, and fun to play with, why can't it also recognize these as human beings whose lives are worth living and whose death is worthy of grief? Thank you. Last month, at the beginning of the Hamas-Israel violence, actress Jamie Lee Curtis wanted to show her sympathy with the state of Israel, so she tweeted this photograph of Israeli children who are being terrorized and traumatized at being bombed by Hamas rockets. She called the tweet "Terror from the Skies" and ended it with an emoji of the Israeli flag. Those children are in fact Palestinian kids in Gaza being bombed by Israel. So Curtis was embarrassed at showing sympathy for the wrong children, and she deleted the post. But isn't her initial sentiment the more honest? Isn't any child being bombed still a child and worthy of sympathy? Here is the most important question of all. How will AI see and analyze images of suffering, loss, and pain as represented in the image? A hint. It will not be done by counting pixels. I call upon AI engineers to build a computer vision system that is fully cognizant of the following three notions. Number one, a cultural understanding of the way that the world has always represented itself in images. Number two, a critical awareness of how we as humans view and categorize images. And number three, an ethical consideration of the role of the image in our world today. But computer programmers cannot do this all on their own. My contention is that computer vision departments everywhere should invite the humanities and the social sciences to their work. Bring in philosophers, sociologists, artists, and others to help figure out how we can use technology to take seeing to new critical spheres where we can finally see without bias or selective perception. In other words, to help create the new ethics of visual perception. That is how we can take the eye of AI, make it wide open to everyone, fairly and accurately. Thank you.